13 years ago tonight, something very special happened in my life, and I wanted to reflect a little bit about that, not just because I want to talk about myself, but because it has a lot to do with what we're celebrating this week in our church. And it has a lot to do, in fact, actually, with why I'm here 13 years later as a priest. So when I was in college at Hanover, I had been discerning throughout my sophomore and junior year, again because of a very profound Bible study I had at DePaul. And I was discerning, and I had kind of come to the decision that I was going to be a priest, but I didn't tell anyone. And then my senior year, I met a girl, and I fell, at least, I don't know about her, but I was like madly in love, and it was awesome after I finally worked up the courage after a month to talk to her. So my senior year, we were dating, and then the priesthood thing just kind of like went away. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I remember when I wanted to be a priest. That was so cute. And I was like, man, I'm glad I moved beyond that, right? I'm happy now. I'm dating. This is great. She's awesome, and she was. But as I started to, after a few months, the priesthood kind of started coming back. That thought of becoming a priest, and I'm like, why? And I would stay up, like I couldn't sleep. It was like the first time in my life where I was really like afflicted by anxiety or just like this uncertainty and this sick feeling. And I remember sometimes I'd stay up, pretty much most of the night, tossing and turning. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get married? Am I supposed to be a priest? And I would go back and forth. And again, I suffered a lot through that. It was probably a couple of months. And I remember I kind of started to lean. I didn't lean. I felt like God was kind of saying, I'm calling you to the priesthood. And I remember one night on my way to Mass, and I drew a line in the sand and I said, that's it. It's like, if you want me to be a priest, tonight's homily needs to be about the priesthood. And I walked in, and the priest said, I don't know if any of you are aware during the homily, but this week in our church is National Vocations Awareness Week, and I want to talk to you about the priesthood. And I said, okay, I give up. And that had a lot to do basically with my decision to enter the seminary and become a priest. And tonight is, again, that same Sunday. It's a Sunday of National Vocations Awareness Week. And so in case any of you are thinking about being a priest, I wanted to make sure I said something. No. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously. And I think, as well, I don't want to give the impression either that when we talk about vocations awareness, what we really mean by that is everybody has a vocation. I think sometimes we've gotten to this situation where vocation for most of us in the church means, are you going to be a priest or a nun? But in fact, what we believe in vocation is that we're all called by God. We all have something that God is calling us to in our life. And it's a matter of we need to kind of almost in a sense get out of the way and let God call us to that and live it out. And I remember part of that, I think it's something that's really important to say is that, first of all, vocations look vastly different, and there's a beauty to that. And I think of the first reading tonight when I think of all of the different vocations, and in fact, every single person has a unique vocation. God is calling you to something that He is not calling anyone else to do. Even my priesthood is completely different than anyone else's priesthood. There are similarities, but there is something unique about my priesthood in this place, in the places where I've been and will be, that is completely different than every other vocation to the priesthood that's ever been answered. And so I think in that first reading, we hear about this water flowing out from the temple to the ends of the earth, and it talks about how all of these different things will spring up from that water, different plants, different animals, different fruits and vegetables, and all of these different amazing things. And you just see this kind of this abundance and this life flowing out from this stream. And of course, the stream is flowing from the church. And so the church gives life to us, but it pops up in all of these amazing, beautiful ways, completely unique ways. And that is the vocations that we all answer in our own way, and each of us has been given a unique opportunity to be something that no one else will ever be, and to be the type of person that no one else will ever be. And there's a real beauty in that. There's a real beauty in that. And I wanted to then, another thing I think that it's important maybe to say, because again, I think even back then, 13 years ago, I had the idea, and I think it came across in my brief testimony there, I had the idea that I was doing God a favor. All right, cuff me, take me to the seminary, let's get this over with. Look how good I am. I'm going to bite the bullet here and be a priest and give up all those things that priests give up. And I think that a lot of times that's the sense that all people have of their vocation. Hopefully, first of all, we're open to and praying for the idea that we have a vocation, that God is calling you to something. But then secondly, I think even once we recognize that, we also have to have an attitude change about that call and recognize that it's not what we think it is a lot of times. And so what in fact, again, I thought of doing myself, of doing God a favor. What I've recognized now is that God was doing me a favor. And it was an extreme blessing, and it continues to be an extreme blessing. This was a vocation that God gave me, not because He needed favors. In fact, it says in the Scriptures, Jesus turns to the Pharisees who are all about doing things, and He says, I could make things out of these stones that could do the work for me. I don't need slaves. I don't need people to do me favors. I don't need people to run errands. I don't need people to just, hey, come and say Mass or baptize people or marry people. I don't need that. God's like, I don't need that. That's not what a vocation is about. It's like, the Holy Spirit and Jesus and the Father are all sitting around like, well, let's see, we need somebody down there in Greencastle. Let's trick Hollowell into it, that way he'll do favors for us. No, that's not it. And again, I thought that. And I've recognized now that that's not how God works. And that in fact, this vocation, my answering that vocation, has been a blessing for me. It's changed me for the better. And I would not be as good of a person and the type of person that I am. I have my flaws, absolutely. But in the sense, in every respect that I've answered the call to be a priest, I have drawn life from that. It was God's gift to me. And that's how every vocation is. No matter what it is, whether it's if God's calling you to be a nurse, or God's calling you to be a mother, or a religious sister, or a priest, or a brother, or a dad, or a coach, or this, or an engineer, or that, whatever it is, it's not God asking for a favor from you. It's God saying, this will blow your mind. This will be the thing that will lead to you becoming the most happy, the most fulfilled version of yourself. I recognize now, looking back, that what God was saying to me was not, okay, here's two choices, Sarah or the priesthood, and if you don't choose the right one, I'm going to kill you. I think that I talk with young people, not so much college, but more the high school students. A lot of times, if they're discerning something and they feel, especially like a call to religious life, but any kind of discernment, sometimes we think, I got to get it right. I got to get the right answer or else God's going to be really mad. When in reality, God doesn't work that way at all. And I recognize now that God was saying to me, and that's why I felt the slight pull to the priesthood. And I recognize, I think what God was saying to me was, here are two options. And I love you very much. And I will, whatever you choose, I'm not going to abandon you. I've promised to be with you until the end of time. But this is the path that I'm holding out for you, that I'm telling you will make you the most happy, the most at peace, the best version of John Hollowell is this. And God was right. I know that. In a joking way, when I'm around young children and so forth, and my brothers and friends, and they all have little kids, after about an hour, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't be a very good dad. You know? Just kidding, of course, a little bit. But no, I recognize in the ways that God has opened my eyes that this is the path that has led to me becoming the best version of myself, the most happy and most fulfilled. And so I ask you and invite you tonight, on this National Vocations Awareness Week, to ask God in prayer, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? What is it that you're offering and extending to me? What path are you extending to me that will lead to the best version of myself? And then the other thing, finally, in closing, that's not a one-time thing. Some people in here are far beyond their college years. And it's also not just about picking a career or a vocation. An awareness of one's vocation is a daily thing. So, Lord, what are you calling me to tomorrow? How are you calling me to be the best version of myself? What is that call? And being open to that. So we recognize eventually that a vocation awareness is a lifelong process. That we're constantly open to a new call, a new nudge, a new invitation. We pray for the strength to first of all ask God what it is that He's calling us to, and then more importantly, the strength to follow the path that He holds out for us.